Or am I? Good morning. I'm Judith Lay and this is Praise, the programme that connects faith and daily life.
Manx Radio.
And praise today comes from London, from Southwark Cathedral on the south bank of the River Thames, where a few days ago I attended a very special service of evensong. A little later in the programme I'll explain why I was there, and I'll be talking with a couple of other local people who had very good reasons for attending. And this is one of those weeks when the Praise podcast includes more material than we could broadcast live. Later in the programme, there'll be a day-by-day report from beekeeping expert Harry Owens, who, with the support of the Isle of Man Beekeepers Federation and Christian Aid, is working in Burundi, one of the world's poorest countries, training them to put their beekeeping on a commercial footing. We'll also find out why Reverend Steve Ingruel won't be found on the island very much over the next few months, and our opening hymn today is one that we sang in Southwark Cathedral. Praise to the Lord, the Almighty, the King of creation. Praise to the Lord, the Almighty, the King of creation. That recording was by the choir of King's College, Cambridge. In a few days' time, according to the Christian Church calendar, we'll begin the weeks of preparation that'll end with the celebration of the great feast of Easter. But what are the origins and the practices of this season, and what might it all mean for us today? Let's eavesdrop on a conversation now between Russ Bravo and Andy Perry.
Lent was something that started really in the early church and went on from there. It was the final time of preparation before people were baptised at Easter. And so just as Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness where he was fasting and tempted before he started his ministry, the idea was that the people who were preparing to become Christians, to be baptised at Easter, spent the final 40 days in their idea of giving things up, their desert, if you like. So there was that. There was also, in the early church, the time when people had been cast out of the communion, excommunicated, if you like, because of sin or because of what they'd done or whatever. And this was their final time of making reparation for those sins before they came back at Easter. And it was a big jolly, and everybody had a fantastic time there.
Right. So, Shrove Tuesday and Ash Wednesday.
Oh, yes.
Explain those.
The pancakes, that's what everyone probably
Pancake
remembers. Pancake Day, yeah. Shrove Tuesday is the Tuesday before Ash Wednesday, and it's a time, Shrove, meaning shrive, to get rid of sins, to repent. Right. It was also a time when, the day before Lent started, of course, you cleared out your cupboards of all the rich fare that you had left, and what better to make them pancakes. So you fried up your pancakes, and you had a big feast before the austerity of Lent kicked in, because, of course, Lent starts on Ash Wednesday, and that 40-day period where people traditionally gave things up. And on Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent, you were marked with the sign of the cross in ash on your forehead. And it still happens a lot in the Orthodox tradition, the Roman Catholic tradition, and a lot of the Anglican traditions as well. People on Ash Wednesday will meet together. The palm crosses from the year before will have been burnt and turned into ash, and the ash will be marked on the foreheads of the people in church. To dust you are, to dust you will return. Turn away from your sins and turn to Christ.
Now, this all goes back right to the early days of the church. It's not something which is a throwback to, like, Victorian times.
Oh, no. It's
much further back.
Yes, much further back than that.
Right. And what about the whole idea of giving up things? Because that's what we think about, isn't it? I'm going to give up chocolate for Lent.
Chocolate, wine, yes.
Where does this come from? And
become
does it mean
extra
anything?
grumpy for Lent. That's what it's all about.
It.
Well, originally, of course, because Jesus went into the desert for 40 days, and he gave up a lot of things for 40 days. In particular, it says he fasted, didn't eat, didn't drink for 40 days. So the idea was that Jesus gave things up for this period of time. Lent is an echo of that, therefore we give things up that are getting in the way of our discipleship, of our following God. So traditionally, Lent has been a time for giving things up. It's also a time for taking things on, though, as well. And sometimes, in one sense, it's quite easy to give up tea or coffee and just be grumpy for the whole of Lent or have caffeine withdrawal symptoms. But what about taking something on? What about going to a Lent group? What about reading a particular book? What about praying for somebody particularly? Something that you actually take on during the period of Lent. Because one of the things that Lent is about, it's about spring cleaning our lives, and it's asking whether the patterns that we're setting, how we're loving, how we're using our money, how we're using our time and our talents, are we doing that in the way that God wants us to do it? And if we need to give things up, maybe we do, but also maybe we need to take things on.
Is Lent a miserable time?
It's not a miserable time, it's a sombre time, and I think there's a difference, isn't it? It's not a joyless time, but it may be a serious time. It's not a time for self-flagellation and self-recrimination, but it's a time for repentance and a time for penitence, and it's a time for getting ourselves straight with God. This idea of spring cleaning is quite a helpful one. Spring cleaning can be a lot of hard work, and it can be a bit of a sweat, but hey, do you feel better when you've done it? And so with our lives, we need a chance to spring clean our lives for God.
Thank you, Russ Bravo and Andy Perry. And if you take a look at the latest edition of our Praise blog, you'll find ideas for some extra things to do during these weeks of Lent. Maybe support a local Lent lunch where simple lunches are served and donations invited that are given to local and global charities. Or maybe sharing in a midweek time of prayer or Bible study would be helpful. Praise blog is accessible from our website, manxradio.com, and I'll remind you of the details at the end of the programme. Working full-time in a parish doesn't leave a priest or a minister much time for anything else, and certainly not for things like study or going on retreat. So that's why, nowadays, ordained ministers of all denominations are strongly encouraged, just occasionally, to take a sabbatical, a few months completely away from their parish duties, a time that they can dedicate to study, to research, to write, or to go on retreat. A sabbatical isn't just time away from regular work. It's time for the ordained person to devote to building themselves up, making them happier and more effective in their own ministry. Reverend Steve Ingrell, together with his wife, Reverend Rebecca, have the care of 7 Methodist churches in the east of the island. And yesterday, Steve began his 3-month sabbatical. Before he did so, I asked him how he was going to spend his time.
Based on my experiences of taking people on pilgrimage to the Holy Land, I've become fascinated by the idea of thin places. And of course, here on the Isle of Man, we've got a deep Celtic tradition of thin place. And a lot of the keels, a lot of the first chapels were built on these thin places. And I know you've done a lot of work, and others as well, on pilgrimage in the Isle of Man. So holding those two things together, I'm starting my sabbatical by going back to the Holy Land myself as an individual and going to some of the places that I haven't personally experienced before, and some of the places that are a little bit off the beaten track for a regular pilgrimage. And asking the question, what makes these places special? Is it something to do with authenticity? Is that important? Is it important to be able to say exactly, this is where Jesus stood and broke the bread and fed the 5,000? That makes this a special place, a holy place. Or is it more important that for millennia, Christians have gathered and remembered that event in that place and prayed in that place? And is there perhaps something about a place being made holy, being made thin by prayer over time? And I'm looking to explore this in the Holy Land, but also going to some sites around the UK, some places of pilgrimage, some great cathedrals such as Durham Cathedral, and meeting with others who have explored this idea theologically. What do we believe today about Bethel, the place where heaven touches earth? And along with that, Rebecca is going to remain more based on the island, and she's going to be exploring more of the spirituality of the Celtic keels and the thin places around the island, as well as joining me in England for some of the visits to cathedrals and such like. So between us, we're really asking the question, what makes a place special? Is it the place itself? Is it the expectation that we carry with us when we go to a place expecting to meet God in a different way? Is it something about the Christian community over centuries that has gathered before us in this place? What is it that means when people come here, they have a deep, profound experience of God? And what can we learn as a Methodist people that we might be able to apply to our chapels and our churches here on the island?
We often go into very old buildings, for example, cathedrals, and we will stand there and say, oh, you can feel the years of prayer, as though the prayers have soaked into the very stones.
Yeah, and that's what's going to be really fascinating to explore. Is there something about that prayer being soaked into the stone over time? I remember a conversation with a friend I worked with in Southampton, a colleague who was atheist and actually quite anti-church. And he said to me that he hates going into churches, even if there's no one else there, because he knows he's being watched. He feels he's being watched. There's something about that sense of presence in those buildings. Or is there? Or is that what he's bringing in his own mind and experience and soul and spirit to that place? It's a question which I'm really looking forward to getting into, and there will be no definitive answer, but I'm just looking forward to exploring it.
I'm looking forward to talking to you at the end of your sabbatical. When you've had time to digest this, you and Rebecca, I'm looking forward to talking to you and discovering what you found out. Is that a deal?
That's a deal.
And that's a conversation I really look forward to having in a few months' time. And so to our final destination today. It's Southwark Cathedral. Nestling in between the Shard, Europe's tallest building, London Bridge Station and the busy multicultural Borough Market, Southwark Cathedral has been a place of Christian worship for over 1,000 years, although not always as a cathedral. First it was a small convent, then over the centuries it grew into a priory, then a parish church, and then in 1905, when the new Diocese of Southwark was created to serve the whole of London south of the river, it became the cathedral. And on Tuesday evening it was packed to capacity with over 600 Mothers Union members from around the world gathered together as the Archbishop of Canterbury, the Most Reverend and Right Honourable Justin Welby, commissioned Sharon Harper as the new worldwide president of the Mothers Union. Archbishop Justin also commissioned the new Board of International Trustees, drawn from the many countries where a total of 4 million Mothers Union members work voluntarily to build supporting, loving relationships and to advocate for the rights of families in ways that are appropriate to each community. We sang some inspiring hymns, and during the service we heard the Archbishop of Canterbury praise the unique and extraordinary work of the Mothers Union as he commissioned this International Anglican Mission Agency's new worldwide president, Sharon Harper. Sharon is from Guyana and began her service with Mothers Union as a volunteer, and she is in fact the first worldwide president to be elected outside the United Kingdom. In his address, Archbishop Justin said, "There is only one Mothers Union. It is unique. It is the world's oldest and largest women's movement, having been in existence for over 145 years. Started by a vicar's wife in rural England, it is, the Archbishop said, one of the Anglican Communion's greatest gifts to the worldwide church." He described its 4 million members as a powerful force of hope in every aspect of the life of the worldwide church, and indeed of society, and praised its role in bringing hope and reconciliation. But he had one particular charge to give the new worldwide president: to make Mothers Union and its work better known. In reply, Sharon Harper said, "I feel overjoyed and humbled by the outpouring of love and support I've received. I'm so very grateful to everyone who's travelled from far and wide for this special day in the history of Mothers Union." Sharon Harper grew up in Guyana and has a background in healthcare, specialising in physiotherapy and rehabilitation, but she gave up this work some 17 years ago to focus on her calling of serving Mothers Union. Until recently, she was the worldwide parenting trainer, where she rolled out Mothers Union parenting programmes in 23 countries across the globe. She's often called upon as a spokesperson for Mothers Union on various interfaith issues. At the commissioning ceremony, Sharon was presented to Archbishop Justin by the immediate past worldwide president, Lynn Temby. After the service, to the accompaniment of a terrific steel band, I asked Lynn how she felt as her time in office came to an end.
I knew that I stood for worldwide president for 6 years, and I've done the best I can to bring a worldwide organisation truly worldwide by encouraging the members with the new constitution. So for me, it was a feeling that I'd listened to God and I'd acted upon his word, and I was now handing over my baby to a wonderful, wonderful leader. Sharon has got so much to offer. And the worldwide board around her, and we can truly say now we are a worldwide organisation. But what we need to remember is that God called you to be a member as he called me, and if we multiply that by all the members around the world, over 4 million, he has just got an amazing mission for each one of us. And as Archbishop Justin said, if we really truly do what we're called to do, which is to be disciples of Christ, just reach your hand out into your community, and you will make a difference. I said it in my 6 years, and I'm hoping Sharon will continue saying that. I know I will.
What do you hope to do now?
I'm listening hard to God, but at the moment I need to focus on family, because we have a serious illness in the family, and I know that God is saying to me, you've done what I asked you to do, now I want you to do something different. It was very strange that several people asked me, will you do ... and it didn't feel right, and I kept thinking, why am I saying no or not at this moment in time? At Christmas I found out why, and I now know that God wants me to care for my family. But certainly within the Diocese of York, I've been asked to consider a couple of things which at the moment I'm praying about, and if it's God's will, He will give me the strength, He'll give me the energy, and I will say yes.
Lynn Temby, thank you for everything that you brought to Mothers Union, and thank you on this very, very busy day, sparing a few moments for a chat.
You're very welcome, Judith, anytime. God bless.
Also at the service in Southwark Cathedral were Helen Parry, who's served Mothers Union here on the island for many years and also at international level, and Gail Eagles, who is the newly appointed diocesan president, building on the hard work of our immediate past diocesan president, Pat Costain. After the service, I caught up with Gail and Helen. Helen Parry has already had the chance to work with Sharon Harper, as she'll tell us in a moment. And Gail Eagles was grateful for the chance that she had to meet the new Global Trustee Board. 10 women and 1 man.
I met the board earlier on today at Mary Sumner House, and I was able to actually speak to some of them, and so it actually gave me a chance to meet these ladies and 1 man from around the world, and they are very much from around the world, and it is quite a task they're taking on. And actually I would encourage more men to join the Mothers Union. I know the title itself leans towards mother, but I think if there were fathers in our community on the Isle of Man who were raising children and would want to join us, I would certainly welcome them.
So you've had a morning in Mary Sumner House meeting the trustees, other diocesan presidents. What would you like to tell us about that, Gail?
Well, I always knew the Mothers Union was very much a worldwide charity, but I think it really came home to me when we were being introduced to the new trustees of just how much of a worldwide charity the Mothers Union is. And of course it does cover every corner of the globe, and the Mothers Union members are very supportive in their local communities. The Archbishop of Canterbury picked that up in his sermon, that actually if aid needs to be distributed, the Mothers Union is a very good organisation to do it through.
But he also mentioned Tanzania, didn't he? Over 900,000 Mothers Union members in Tanzania. When we're home on the island, we can tend to feel a little bit small, can't we? We need to remember those kind of things.
Yes, indeed, indeed.
And 145 years of the Mothers Union, the oldest women's group, is something to be terribly proud of, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Gail, I'd like to come back to you in a moment, but we've also got with us Helen Parry. Helen, you also have been here in the cathedral. It was a wonderful service.
Yes, it was a lovely service. Yes, it was.
Now, you have a long association with Mothers Union in various roles. You've gone on to take on an international role. It was good again to hear the Archbishop of Canterbury, Archbishop Justin, reminding us of what a valuable organisation this is.
Yes, and he does recognise the work that's done worldwide. Wherever he goes, he sees the women at work in so many different ways. And now I think we're coming on to look at the peace and reconciliation that women can do around the world. As the women's groups are becoming more developed with their literacy and numeracy, and as life goes on, doesn't it, and things alter, and we look at different things, and it's recognised that the women may be able to bring reconciliation. In some parts of the world, I think that's been proved. Indeed, in Ireland, it was one of the things, wasn't it, that women could bring the peace. We all have the common interest wherever you go in the world, or whatever meetings you're at, like Gail was today, with people from all over the world. We've all got the common interest, and the one thing that we have flowing through the centre is prayer, which makes us different to some other organisations.
Everything that we do is underpinned with prayer.
Absolutely.
And if we're tackling big issues, that's what we need. We're not going to do it in our own strength.
No, we're not, no. And we have to step out in prayer, and sometimes we have to actually do things when we're not totally certain that we might be able to do them, but we know that we really want to do them. It might be encouraging more people to join the Mothers Union, is that sometimes you just have to step out in that faith and hope and love that our Christian faith gives us.
Gail, you had an opportunity this morning to talk to Sharon Harper, to talk to the new worldwide president, and there was something that she said that you found very interesting.
That's indeed, yes. In fact, our CEO, Bev Julian, asked her to give us a little roundup of her journey to the worldwide president. And she said that when she visited the Isle of Man with Helen Parry, that Helen Parry took her on a walk to one of our very lovely keels with a waterfall behind it. And she said that while she was there, she said that, and I quote actually because I wrote it down because I thought it was really interesting, she said, she felt like she was standing on holy ground and she was on a retreat and she was visiting this beautiful keel in this beautiful place with a waterfall behind it, and it was almost like an encounter that she had in the peace and quiet of that keel, a place where prayer has been said for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it said it really pointed her to the direction that she needed to apply to be the next worldwide president. And I think that's extraordinary that she found that on the Isle of Man.
Sharon and I have worked for 6 years as fellow trustees, she being the representative of what we call Zone B, which was Guyana and the Americas, and I was Zone A, which was the Asian side, Myanmar, Sri Lanka and Korea. So we've worked together closely, and I've always said, why don't you come over and see me, Sharon? And so she did, just for a few days. We saw the island, walked the dog, she met my family, and we just had a lovely time together. But I'm so moved that she appreciated being at the keel.
145 years of Mothers Union, and this is the first time that we've had a non-English worldwide president.
It shows how Mothers Union has grown and the strength that it's now not just focused on UK. It has for many, many years been worldwide, but now we're seeing that strength, bringing the real vision to the organisation.
And that's where we leave Southwark Cathedral and the service of commissioning for the new worldwide president of the Mothers Union, Sharon Harper. If you're a regular praise listener, you might be wondering how our lovely Harry Owens is getting on, sharing his beekeeping expertise in Burundi. Well, I can tell you he's doing a fantastic job, but don't just take my word for it. Here's Harry's day-by-day diary, kindly sent to us by Anna Burden from Christian Aid, who's working alongside Harry. The diary starts last Sunday and begins with Harry's impressions of a Burundian church service. Quite a contrast to his spiritual home here in St John's.
Harry, so it's the end of our 4th day, I think, in Burundi, and it's been quite an eventful day again. Can you tell me a little bit about today, and particularly this morning in church?
Yeah, very impressive this morning. It's we walked into a building and it was full of people and colour and music. Absolutely unbelievable compared to what we're used to going into church. I was impressed with just the way they were singing and the rhythm and everything. And also, there was 4 different choirs there, all dressed in their own sort of robes. And they were robes, they were long robes with cross on them and various colours and that. But the harmony and the music, I was so impressed. And the service, well, we had to pick the bones out of that one because it wasn't in English, but even so we were able to follow it. We had a preacher from the UK. He spoke to us and he was interpreted to the congregation, but it was quite enlightening actually. It was quite mechanical the way things were done as well. You went up for communion and they all lined up in 3 actual lines. I was in one, there was one on our left, 2 on our right, and it was quite amazing, and that was done with precision. And likewise, the collection was done in similar manner. Amazing. Mind you, they had to do it because it's such a large congregation. The people were dressed beautifully and smartly. It was a joy to see them. And from there on, eventually, we got to the bishop's offices and we greeted us, and the various people that were us and others had to say who we were and what we were doing and things like that. And following that, we had a meal, and the bishop laid on a meal, which was quite nice indeed. And we were well received in every situation. I'm so pleased.
Yeah, and at the service there was a lot of energy, wasn't there?
Wasn't there?
Passion
Well,
and...
yeah.
But also lots of kind of acceptance. We were invited to go up to the
Yeah.
front, weren't we?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that, you're absolutely right. We had to, as that, what was he, from Winchester,
Yes.
he had to go up, and his wife and another
charity,
young girl
yeah.
from WI, or representing the WI, went up and they introduced themselves, and likewise the three of us had to go up and introduce ourselves and tell them why we were there. And yeah, it was lovely. We, as I say, well received without question.
Brilliant. And then, so now we're sitting in the evening in a different place than we've been the last 3 nights.
Yeah.
How did you find the journey up north and
Yeah.
your new place for the next 5 or 6 days?
Yeah, amazing journey. It's worked on the horn, boop, boop, beep, beep, missing people walking, cycling, other cars on the opposite side of the road and everything like that. It was, it was a hairy drive, but we still got there in one piece. It was quite amazing. And we went through villages and congregations of people selling stuff and just talking to each other. It's quite amazing. Absolutely amazing country.
And how about your room tonight? Are you pleased with it? Is it all right?
Absolutely superb. It's like a royal palace, actually. It is beautiful. It's spacious. Nice garden outside. Beautiful. And of course, the staff again, wherever we've been, are so courteous and helpful. One could not ask for more.
Well, I hope you sleep well tonight.
I'm sure I will.
So it's the morning after the 5th day in Burundi.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about yesterday?
Yesterday, I learned what I need to show them what to do. I looked in the hives, and it was, to me, a disaster in that the poor people have been given these hives, and they've not been told how to use them properly. And all they've been doing is putting the hives together, putting frames in with no wax in them, wires across, and hoping that the bees would build onto it. As it happens, some of them have done, but they've done it in such a manner that it's just impractical to really work with it. I did demonstrate to them, and I showed them, and everything like that was required to get them to be productive. And those hives have a potential. I was amazed. The flora at this time of the year, even when it's sort of they term it as winter, is a time they could really get abundance. This business about 5 kilograms maximum from a tube hive for a year, it's just nonsense. So if we can get them to really go into the modern hive and show them how to make it work, they will be absolutely gobsmacked, because the potential is there. The bees, if we set them off on foundation, and the bees will build on that and in uniform form, which is then able to be easily dealt with. The world's their oyster then. Once they, I'm sure they're not stupid people. Once they get the idea, they're off. And the decision to bring the presses was a good idea, because my theory is they're having dribs and drabs of honey and all sorts of a mess, actually. I looked at some of the stuff they're doing, and it was in a little tiny hut or house alongside where we had the photographs taken with the Manx flag, etc. And there was a bucket with comb in it, all sorts of shapes and sizes. It had been built in and used by the bees for breeding larvae, and it was just cut up in bits, and there was honey and the wax in the conglomeration of it. And then there was a bottle, a plastic bottle with a lid on, and that was the same. It was swimming in sort of honey and the comb with it. Well, it's a highly unsatisfactory way of doing it. If they had a cooperative, they knew how much honey or comb, etc. they got. They could put it to a central and press it. They would get proper honey out of it. They would get rid of the debris and at the same time have a clinical, saleable product. the setup is, if they use the presses, they can recycle the wax to make their own wax, to do the job again and again and again and again, until such time that they'll be experts.
As we arrived at the different villages, we'd come quite a long way on a really bumpy road.
Yes, Louise knows those roads.
We'd been bumped around, and we got there, and we put on our protective clothing, didn't we, to go and see the bees?
Yeah.
How did you find the other people in the village, the beekeepers?
Well, they had virtually nothing to wear, and some got stung and what have you, and some had that demeanour with bees and didn't really have to cover up. It was quite surprising. Some people can do that with a certain attitude to bees. They don't put pheromones of fear up and everything like that. I went in like a knight in armour because I didn't know what to expect. I had full protection on, and I needn't have bothered. That was the first ones. I don't remember the name of the village. But anyway, the first one we went to, the bees were superb, but were completely mishandled in every shape and form. They were getting nothing out of them. It was a total mess within the breeder, where the queen is area, and also above where you would get your honey production. But they were superb bees. They're as good as any I've had at home. And they could be utilised to actually breed them on, so you'd have a better bee for handling, because they were so easy to handle. They didn't bother us. As soon as we stopped messing them out, they went back in the hive and got on with it. Now, the second lot we went to, they were a different matter altogether. They were really aggressive. They followed us from the site where the hives were right into the buildings, which we went in to try and get them to go away, but they didn't. And they stayed with us for an hour, flying around our heads, etc., more so than other people than I. And those bees, I would suggest, would not propagate. Another thing I saw immediately was the height of the hives from the ground. We have them no more than 18 inches from the ground, and the idea is you don't break your back when you're dealing with the brood, which is the most important place to look. That tells you the story when there's a problem. If you look in there, you can tell the problem. And it's just like skyscrapers. I mean, I was trying it, and I'm not I'm not short in that stature, but I had just about managed to do it. And the trouble is, if you're not able to manipulate the combs, they do an awful job getting back in position. Yeah. So they need to alter the height, they need to know how to put the hives together with wax. The frames are already made. So I'll endeavour now to show them the methods. I haven't been in the tube hive yet, but I'll show you I'll show them how you deal with that, and then they can actually put them from a tube hive into a modern hive, and it'll prosper.
Brilliant. So are you looking forward to today? Just
I am.
Briefly. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Brilliant. Great. We'll speak again later. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So, Harry, it's the end of day 6. And first of all, you've not been feeling that well for the last sort of 48 hours or so. How are you feeling now?
I'm feeling great now. I managed to overcome it. It was food poisoning. But I've had a great day. It encouraged me greatly the way we had this group of men and women and the show, and a great help. Anna was a great help here. She augmented a lot of the things I was trying to put forward, and I think we're a good team, Anna.
Yeah.
I think so. We had Desiree is the interpreter, and he did a first-class job. It is indicated to me that he might even want to take up beekeeping himself now. He was so enthralled with the whole subject. But it was wonderful. They all responded to what I was telling them, asked an awful lot of questions. They had quizzes from Anna, and they responded in no uncertain manner. They literally took it in. And I think it was a little bit better than the Kenyans display some years ago, or whenever you were there, Louise. But it was fascinating to actually talk to them. And we actually, you probably already know this, but we had 2 of the ladies operating the honey press. We've got some comb in it, and I showed them how we did it, how it was supposed to be done, and they squeezed the honey out and all that sort of thing, and they were absolutely delighted. And we were able to get the women to participate, and there's one in particular in the red headdress. She asked an awful lot of questions, and I think as the day went on, she got more confident. and we put the word across to them. But there's an awful lot of work we've got to do to encourage them to go on the right road, because I don't know if I've said this before, but they were given a lot of equipment, and the equipment was fine to a certain degree. It wasn't the frames and everything weren't, as I would suggest, good, but they were given them. And just sort of, here you are, here's the hives and things like that. But they didn't know how to operate them. And they were expecting the bees to work and willy-nilly, and it doesn't work. So the first time I went to, I can't remember the place, way out anyway. We went there and as soon as I looked in the hives, I knew blooming well what was the problem. And looked in the second set yesterday. And they know now that they need to do something different. And hopefully I'm able to show them on the right road of how to get these things to be productive. I mean, they were telling us they were only getting 5 kilos from one of these tube hives, which to me is absolutely ridiculous. And I was saying to them, if you do it properly, the supers will produce 20 to 25 kilos of honey in one box. So that perked them up a bit. Yeah. So if they go along the right road, I'm sure we're going to succeed. We've got to come back again, Louise.
Yeah, and for me it was particularly encouraging to see how the women were starting to get involved, because I think it was yesterday or the day before we heard one of the women say that traditionally the women don't get involved or they feel scared, they haven't got protective clothing. But we had quite a few women today. But one of the women particularly today started off saying that she didn't think they needed to wear protective clothing because that was their tradition. Yeah. But we managed to
persuade them in the other.
Quite a bit today about how important protective clothing is.
From what you say, Anna, and I quite agree with you, it would appear that they had something to do with folklore. That when the women appear, the bees buzz off, which isn't true. So if we can get them organised and to make their own stuff, because I think that's the only way forward, to make some rudimentary protective clothing. And I've seen some of the net they've got. They can use, as you said yourself, mosquito net. But if we can show them the method, I know there's machines, they can either hand stitch or use machines. They're going to prosper.
So it's great to see those women there today, and particularly those 2 women, as you said, demonstrating, and it gives them confidence.
Oh, it did. Oh, it booked them really well, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
I noticed they were really preening themselves, and I thought that was fabulous.
Great.
Fabulous.
So a good day today.
It certainly was.
Okay, Harry, it's our 7th day in Burundi, and we've just come back from a full day of training with the women in Ngozi. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling exhausted at the moment. I'm waiting for a beer, but on the other hand, it's been so rewarding a day. I couldn't have it any better. The people are so responsive. They want to learn. They're taking notice. We asked them, Anna does her usual super-duper questioning thing, and they answer it absolutely brilliantly. It's so encouraging to see them there. They want to know, and one of the beauties of what I've been trying to do, and it seems to work, is to guide them through the problems they had with the original her hives, which had frames and wax and everything, and they weren't really suitable for using the wax the way I would. So I did show them today the method of improving the frames and getting the wax into it. It wants further modification, but they've got the answer now. They know what I'm talking about, and I think that's progress. One of the things I think I must have already said to you, what I picked up immediately, was they were given boxes of which were hives. They were given frames which had wire, and they had no instruction. The frames themselves weren't really suitable for just pushing wax into. But now that they've been enlightened, I think we're making really good progress. And as I said to them, it did my heart good, and I'm so glad I've come. And Louise, it's coming true for you. I'm not kidding you. It's what you wanted, and we're doing it for you.
Thank you. And at lunchtime, Harry, you'd had about 3 or 4 hours of standing and training, and I was trying to get you to come and have a sandwich, and you were showing your photos, and I couldn't get you away.
I know.
How did you find it? You looked like you were in your element.
I am in my element. It's something that I can't say how much I embrace beekeeping. I'm part of beekeeping, and people to respond like that and I haven't a problem. It's just I go on and on and on till I drop.
And they were a good crowd. We had about 50 mixed men and women, a lot of women that had come from their cooperatives, but they were all taking notes, weren't
Gosh,
they?
yes. Oh, yes, there's no question about it. There was notes and they were very attentive. There was no such thing as looking the other way and talking among themselves. They just didn't have time to do that. We kept buzzing away.
And you had one man ask a request of you, didn't you?
Yeah, he wanted to come over and see me, I think, or beekeeping my place. We thought he was going mad or something because he would go on and on and on, and we thought, what's that being said here?
Yes, he said it was the best training he'd had and he wanted more.
Yes.
Could he have a field trip to the island?
Yes, that just shows you, Louise, how they've responded to our efforts, and rewarding.
Brilliant.
It wasn't wasted.
Brilliant. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything?
Well, there was some frustrations when stuff was mislaid and that, but one of the things that it came true to prove why I was frustrated. It was a particular bag that we use inside the wax press, and it's a formed one, and it's of a shape to fit in the press, and it's ideal, but we didn't have it. And when it came, I was so pleased and able to show them why I was a bit agitated.
So it looks like our beers have arrived, so we'll take a break.
Yeah.
So we've come to the end of day 8 in Burundi, and today you were doing some carpentry training, is that right?
I was.
How did it go?
I was absolutely delighted with today. I went not fully realising that these chaps were joiners and journeymen. I was expecting them to be sort of keen beekeepers and could wield a hammer and so on. I would have to show them how to cut square and how to do rebates and so forth. I was very glad. I was really, really surprised. They were excellent. They were skilled craftsmen. And, of course, they turned their skills to making the hives, which will definitely be a success. The wood they were using was exceedingly hard, good quality, and they'd machined it perfectly well. They made, as I say, they were able to make whatever width you wanted. They had joints that you could make a column of wood, and it would suit either whatever size you wanted in width. So that was done. What I also did with them, I brought the hives we'd purchased and brought. I got them to make them up and show them how they should be put together, and that sort of transmitted the skill that precision was required for the hives, because that is what's called for. And at the same time, I also devised it in such a way that I could send photographs to the makers of this stuff, Thorn's beehives in Lincoln. So I'm going to do that because I got quite a good discount of them, and you never know, we might have to call on their services at some future time. But the whole project with the joiners and that was fantastic, very, very exceedingly positive. The skills they showed were absolutely brilliant. So there's no fear that they won't produce hives. My thoughts are that by virtue of the fact that they are so good at it and they've grasped the subject and they're keen to do it, they are even keen to make the hive frames to the perfect size and shape. And to me that is skillful and also very rewarding for the people here, because when you look at it, you've got beekeepers who will be providing honey, and if they get the hives right, they're going to get tremendous amount of honey, which in turn will give them nutrition, give them cash, will give them anything within that range, and they're able to purchase from these journeymen what they produce for them, and so it'll grow. I actually demonstrated the tube hive, which you're well aware of, Louise. I demonstrated to them the way we would extract the bees from it and how we would do that sort of thing. So they got the gist of it. They got the idea of where I was trying to push them towards. So that fed them with the idea that getting rid of tube hives and putting in their made hives is income for them, and so it will progress. So It was a very, very successful afternoon. Desiree, who's an excellent fellow, a very, very good linguist, he asked me some questions and I was able to answer them and direct them in a different way to make queen excluders, which are another precise thing. And they would never be able to source the materials to make them in such a way that I brought over. But I actually was able to show them how to make them from materials that's freely at hand. So that's another plus as far as I'm concerned today.
Brilliant. And I chatted with one of the carpenters at the end of the day, and he said he was so excited to learn how to make the beehives, how to make the modern hives. He'd learnt a few new skills with you, but the main thing seemed to be that it was a way that he could make more income for himself, because there's not that much work around.
Yeah.
And sometimes they import the hives, don't they, from other countries. So
Yes.
for Burundi, it'll increase the job opportunities for these carpenters.
They might be able to even export them, because the stuff that was brought in 3 years ago is absolutely useless compared to what I'd brought and what they will produce. So I think, well, we're on an uphill, not an uphill, we're on a plus bracket as far as I'm concerned in this respect.
That's excellent. Can I ask you about how you're finding food now and and the climate and all that kind of thing after we've been here for a week now, haven't we?
Well, I mean, it wasn't even as hot as our last summer, frankly. It's been dullish quite a bit, but it's been nice and warm. The humidity, which I was expecting, hasn't arrived. It's pleasant. And I've only had a couple of bites, which I'm very pleased about. I haven't put any protective stuff on my skin for the last few days, and it's proved that it's unnecessary here. It's brilliant.
Right, so we're coming up to tea time on day 9 in Burundi, and it's our last day in the north, in Ngozi, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
How was today?
Today, inspiring again. I was in a bit of a gloom. I didn't think that the materials we required to do this project today were there, but I was absolutely astounded. Everything was there, within reason, I should say, and it worked up so well. I was so pleased with the way things went. Today we did the making of veils, also the full suits, and also completing or trying to complete the solar wax extractor. And it was a wonderful day. The solar wax extractor is not completed yet. I'm yet to approve it when we get back from the south, and then it'll be carted back up here. But they've got the idea, and it's going to work for them. We did I did the manipulating cloth and another cloth for filtering honey and all that, and everything worked out. They made a super job of everything. There was professional people there, and there was also novices. And I was amazed at everything that went on today. Anna was there full of finger and needles and so forth, and leaping around as usual. And with her help, we achieved a heck of a lot today. I'm so pleased.
Yeah, and what struck me most of all, I think, was that the people we've been working with are always there on time. They're so committed, so enthusiastic. Even if, like today, we didn't have all the stuff we wanted at the beginning of the day.
Yeah.
We can improvise, and they will just follow, won't they?
Yeah.
They're really receptive.
Yeah. They soaked it up. They just, like a sponge, what we able to impart to them, they absorbed it, and they just cracked on and just got on with it. It was amazing. And they came from far and wide, I must say that. And they were absolutely, that's typical, of course. They're just super people.
Yeah.
And, they got on with it. They were so pleased that I think that we were able to help them, and we were so pleased that they were able to do it.
Yeah, and one of the good things, I think, is as they go back to their communities, they will either be able to make the suits and sell them a bit more cheaply onto the beekeepers, or some of the beekeepers can make the suits themselves now, or share the skills, can't they? So
I couldn't agree more. What we've basically done in these days we've been in the north, we've sort of given them an opportunity to improve their lives and to probably get a living out of it in some respect. And nutrition is another thing that I think is one of the things that they really require. And by virtue of the fact that we've arrived here and we've done our little bit, I think we've probably improved their lot.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harry Owens, the Isle of Man's beekeeping expert, transforming the lives of some of the world's poorest people in Burundi by sharing his beekeeping skills. And we'll have a full report on Harry's second week working in the south of Burundi on Praise next Sunday. Thank you for listening to this week's Praise podcast. There's a new Praise podcast available every Sunday morning. You can subscribe for free on iTunes, Google Podcasts and Spotify via the Manx Radio smartphone app or at manxradio.com. So until we meet again, this is Judith saying thank you for your company, and I wish you and those you love every blessing in the days ahead.